Okay, so this submission is a really strong theological refutation of those conspiracy theories blaming Israel or Jewish people for the Charlie Kirk assassination attempt.
Absolutely. And it frames it as this critical spiritual battle, which is powerful. The stakes feel incredibly high.
They really do. Which is why we need to talk about structure first, to make sure that message lands with maximum force.
Right. Structure and flow. Let's dive in.
So the main thing, I think, is the way it weaves the scripture and the current conspiracy claims together so tightly, back and forth. It happens so fast, it kind of risks overwhelming people, maybe even diluting the core message.
I see that. It's like you're constantly switching gears, right? You've got the deep theological points, demonic agendas, Romans, Matthew 24, the covenant stuff.
Yeah, the big picture spiritual crisis.
And then boom, you're suddenly talking about Candace Owens' specific lie about a gag order or Superfeed Tech, Java's media network.
The very specific temporal details.
Exactly. And jumping between that kind of spiritual warfare framework and the, let's call it, journalistic expose of current events, it does feel like it could lessen the impact of both sides if you're not careful.
It's almost like you're trying to digest two different meals on the same plate at the same time.
So, the suggestion, how do we fix that?
Well, the idea would be to structure it more clearly. Maybe into two distinct parts.
Okay.
First, you establish the facts. Lay out the evidence for the disinformation campaign really clearly. All those specific names, the threats, the mechanics of the lies, nail that down first.
So build the factual case.
Right. And then, once that reality is undeniable, you pivot. You transition into the spiritual, the prophetic interpretation of why this specific campaign is so significant.
Okay, so you're saying create a cleaner narrative path, evidence first.
Yes, group all that proof together. Start with the immediate aftermath of the assassination attempt, how quickly Israel was blamed. Talk about the guy threatening Seth Dillon, the specific accounts he followed, like Israel Exposed. Ground it all in that concrete reality.
And bring in the Erica Kirk accusations there too, with her mother and Superfeed Tech?
Exactly. Lay out that whole factual but kind of convoluted thread right there in part one. This is the what happened, the temporal attack.
Okay, I see the logic. Establish the crime scene first, but then the transition needs to be strong, right? How do you bridge that gap effectively?
That's where the testimony from Eden comes in. That piece about God's unbreakable covenant with the Jewish people. That's your bridge.
The point being, if the old covenant can be broken,
then the new covenant is potentially jeopardized too. That theological point becomes the perfect lever. It connects the facts you just laid out, the specific attack, to the profound core spiritual significance. It elevates the stakes of the facts themselves.
Got it. So present the evidence, then use that powerful theological argument as the pivot point to explain the why it matters spiritually.
Precisely. It lets the audience absorb the complex facts without getting, biblical commentary dropped in mid-sentence while they're trying to track who runs what company. Much clearer, much stronger impact.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's talk about something else you did really well, perhaps the most original insight in the piece.
Which is?
The analysis of how these conspiracy theories are built. You called it using loosely tied threads. That needs to be front and center.
Oh, right, the methodology.
Yes, it's brilliant, but right now it feels a bit like an aside. You identify the mechanism perfectly. These little, maybe technically true, but totally tenuous connections, the little T lies.
That they weave together to get you to swallow the predetermined big T lie.
Exactly that. But then the piece kind of moves back quickly to the broader spiritual conflict stuff.
Instead of really drilling down on the method of the attack.
Right. The suggestion here is to make that analysis a major focused section, maybe even the longest part. Really dissect that specific conspiratorial logic. Don't just mention it, unpack it.
Show the audience how the trick works.
Precisely. Give them the tools to recognize it themselves. You used a great example already, the MTG one. Use that.
Okay, so expand on that. Maybe start by laying out the Erica Kirk accusation structure really explicitly.
Yeah, do that. Spell it out. Erica Kirk's mother, Lori Franz, is on the board of Superfeed Tech. Superfeed Tech uses geofencing tech linked somehow to the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Therefore,
Erica Kirk betrayed Charlie. Just state the absurdity plainly.
Yes, show that chain of non sequitur. Point out that maybe Lori France is on a board, maybe the company does use geofencing. These little threads might have a tiny grain of truth.
But they have absolutely zero logical connection to the conclusion that Erica is a traitor.
Zero. And then immediately put the Marjorie Taylor Greene example next.
MTG bought stock in Palantir? Palantir gets called an Israeli scop, whatever that specifically means in their narrative.
Therefore, MTG is bought by Israel.
You need to explicitly highlight that it's the same structure. The names change, the details change, but the faulty logic, the guilt by tenuous association, it's identical.
Exactly. You show that the power of this whole method relies entirely on the listener just accepting these flimsy parallel threads as proof for a conclusion they probably already wanted to believe anyway.
So by dedicating a whole section to dissecting that, you're not just refuting one conspiracy. You're giving the audience like an intellectual toolkit.
An intellectual self-defense manual, yeah. Showing them the pattern is way more powerful than just debunking one claim. That should be the intellectual heart of this.
Okay, good. Final point then, and this is about maintaining that authority you've built up, completeness and focus.
Meaning?
Meaning, when you critique secondary figures or counter messages, you gotta stick to the high ground. Focus on doctrine, on impact, not personal stuff.
I think I know where you're going. There's that bit where it critiques the guy warning people off TPUSA churches.
Right, and it speculates about his appearance, suggesting he looks like he might be struggling with alcoholism or narcotic use.
Yeah, that felt off.
It really does. It's subjective, it's visually based, and honestly, it feels like a bit of a cheap shot. It deviates completely from the strength of the rest of the piece, which is all grounded in scripture and factual evidence.
It undermines the credibility, doesn't it? You lose that high ground the moment you go there.
Totally. So the suggestion is pretty straightforward. Just take that part out. Remove the speculation about his physical appearance entirely.
And replace it with...
Sharpen the focus onto the doctrine. What is the actual harm being done? Focus on the dangerous, unbiblical message itself.
Which is the claim that TPUSA-affiliated churches are, spying on you? Using Jewish intelligence?
Yes, and the direct, terrible consequence of that lie. It's leading folks away from the church. That's the real issue, the spiritual damage.
So pivot directly to that consequence. The lie is causing believers, these little ones, as the piece rightly calls them, to abandon fellowship based on fear-mongering.
That's where you bring the hammer down, but with authority. Connect that harmful action directly to Jesus' own words.
Use scripture to critique the doctrine, not personal speculation to critique the person.
Exactly. You quote that passage, "If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their necks."
And to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Yeah, aiming that scripture squarely at the doctrine of causing people to abandon the church, that's powerful. That keeps the whole piece on solid ground intellectually and spiritually.
Okay, so let's quickly recap those three main takeaways. The big opportunities to make this even stronger.
Right. First, structure. Separate the temporal and the spiritual arguments for clarity. Hit them with the solid evidence first.
Then use that Eden testimony about the covenant as the powerful bridge to the prophetic significance. Make it a clear two-act structure.
Second, elevate the analysis of the methodology. That loosely tied threads insight, make that the central intellectual pillar.
Use those parallel examples, Erica Kirk Superfeed Tech versus MTG Palantir, to really break down how the conspiratorial logic works. Teach the audience to see the pattern.
Turn it into that self-defense tool. And third?
Third, maintain that high ground. Focus critiques on the dangerous doctrine, like telling people to leave church out of fear and avoid any speculative personal attacks, especially about appearance.
Stick to scripture and fact.
Exactly. This is such important, urgent work. It really speaks to what's happening right now.
It really does. The potential impact is huge. We definitely want to see this piece reach that full potential.
Absolutely. So, take this feedback, maybe rework things along these lines, the clearer structure, elevating the methodology section, keeping the critiques doctrine-focused, and please, send it back to us.
We're looking forward to seeing the next version.